The visa advice is solid goals for anybody.
Yeah,
I'm curious,
great.
do you think using this kind of format means that the questions are simplified, or could they actually reveal some aspects that people overlook?
I think it's fascinating that this video highlights how visa interviews are not one size fits all. Like the
Right.
type of visa you're going for dramatically changes the game.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that
Mhm.
they're specifically using a B2 visa, which is for tourists.
Uh-huh.
What about someone that wants to study in the U.S.?
Exactly. If you were going for a student visa, like an F1,
Yeah.
the interviewer would be looking for completely different proof that you meet the requirements.
Right.
It's not just about your English skills, but your overall intentions and ability to thrive in the U.S.
So even though this video is focusing on tourists, the core questions they ask are probably pretty standard across the board.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They cover three main questions that pop up in most visa interviews.
Okay.
The first one seems deceptively simple.
Yeah.
Where is your final destination in the United States, and what's the purpose of your trip?
I'm guessing just saying America doesn't really cut it.
Not a chance.
Right.
You need to know the exact city and state that you're headed to.
Okay.
Vague answers can raise red flags and make the interviewer question your preparedness and genuine intentions.
So what's the next question that they ask?
It's all about time. How long do you plan to remain in the United States?
Oh.
This is where consistency with your initial application is absolutely critical.
Okay.
Any discrepancies, even seemingly small ones,
Yeah.
will damage your credibility.
So no extending that trip, even if I'm having the time of my life.
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
It's crucial to stick to the plan you outlined in your application. Now, the third question is where things get really interesting.
Hit me with it.
And this is probably what most people stress about.
Yeah.
It's the dreaded ties question. Tell me about the ties you have to your home country.
Oh.
This is where the interviewer is truly trying to assess your commitment to returning home after your U.S. visit.
Okay.
They're looking for proof that you won't overstay your visa.
Ties.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for me a little bit? Like,
Yeah.
what are they really looking for there?
Think of ties as anything that significantly roots you to your home country.
Okay.
Things that would make it very difficult to just up and leave permanently.
So like a job, a house, family. Those would be ties.
Absolutely. Owning property, having a stable career, and family responsibilities are all excellent examples.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond that.
Okay.
Financial assets like investments or savings accounts also demonstrate a commitment to your home country's financial system.
It's about showcasing a life you wouldn't just abandon.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. The stronger your ties, the more confident the interviewer will be that you're a legitimate visitor who will respect the terms of your visa and return home when it expires.
Now think about your own situation.
Yeah.
What would be your strongest ties, and how would you present them?
Yeah. What would you say?
Well, I mean, I would probably start with, but wait a minute.
Yeah.
Remember that part of the video where the applicant, they get approved
Oh, yeah.
for a resident visa,
Yeah.
even though they were applying for a tourist visa?
Uh-huh.
Could that ever happen in real life?
That scene was clearly for laughs.
Right.
But it does raise an interesting point.
Yeah.
Visa categories are very specific, and the interviewer's job is to assess your eligibility for the exact visa you applied for.
So no surprise upgrades.
Afraid not.
Oh, man.
But it does highlight the importance of being completely honest and upfront about your intentions.
Yeah.
Trying to pull a fast one will only hurt your chances.
It's better to play it safe and be upfront.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of things they don't directly ask about but are still crucial,
Yeah.
the video subtly touches on the importance of demonstrating financial independence.
Money matters.
Yes.
So what do they mean by financial independence in this context?
Even if they don't explicitly ask about your finances,
Okay.
proving you can support yourself during your trip is vital.
Gotcha.
It shows responsibility and reduces the risk of you needing to work illegally in the U.S. to fund your stay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how do you demonstrate financial independence without, like, seeming like you're bragging about how much money you have?
It's all about striking a balance.
Okay.
Bringing bank statements that show a consistent income and sufficient funds to cover your travel expenses is a good starting point.
So it's like you're showing them you've got a plan
Yes.
and you're not going to be relying on anyone else.
Right.
Or worse, getting into financial trouble while you're there.
Precisely.
Okay.
And if someone else is sponsoring your trip, having them provide a letter of financial support that outlines their commitment to covering your costs can also be very helpful.
It seems like every detail matters.
You're right. Visa interviews are about much more than just answering questions.
Yeah.
You're essentially presenting a complete picture of yourself, your intentions, your background, and your ability to be a responsible visitor to the U.S.
That gives me a whole new perspective on it.
Right.
I'm starting to see even a seemingly simple video can offer some valuable insights.
That's the power of deep dives.
Yeah,
You never know where you'll find those hidden gems of wisdom.
I like that.
But before we get too carried away, I think it's time to pause for a moment.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground already, and I want to give you a chance to process all this information.
Okay.
What stood out to you so far?
Wow. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot to unpack. I'm particularly intrigued by this whole Tonkades concept.
Yep.
It makes sense, but I feel like I still have a few more questions about.
I know exactly what you're going to ask, and trust me, it's a topic worth exploring further.
Okay.
But for now, let's take a moment to reflect. When we come back, we'll delve deeper into those ties and uncover even more strategic tips for acing your visa interview. Stay tuned.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of U.S. visa interviews. We're unpacking the strategies and insights you need to increase your chances of success.
We were just starting to unravel the mystery of those all-important ties
Right.
and how to present them convincingly to the visa officer. I
Yeah.
have to admit, it's got me thinking about my own situation.
Absolutely. And it's a smart move to start thinking about those ties early in the process.
Right.
Remember, we talked about property ownership, stable jobs, and family responsibilities being strong indicators, but it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Yeah.
What are some other examples of ties that might not be so obvious but are still incredibly valuable to highlight?
I'm all ears.
Uh,
I'm sure there are nuances I haven't even considered.
Think about it this way. What makes your life in your home country unique and irreplaceable? What are the things that would make it extremely difficult to simply pack up and start a new life somewhere else?
Okay, I see what you mean. It's about showcasing the depth of your connection to your home country, not just listing off a few basic facts.
Exactly. For example, you might have elderly parents you care for,
Oh.
or children who are deeply involved in their local school or community.
Right.
These are powerful ties that demonstrate your commitment to your current life.
So it's about showing that you have responsibilities and commitments that keep you grounded in your home country.
Exactly.
It's not just about what you own, but about the life you've built and the people you're connected to.
You're getting it, and those connections don't stop with family.
Yeah.
Active involvement in your community can be another strong tie.
Okay.
Do you volunteer for any local organizations? Are you a long-term member of a club or society? These are all examples of ties that demonstrate your engagement and integration into your home country's social fabric.
Wow, I hadn't even thought about those.
Yeah.
It's really about painting a comprehensive picture of your life,
Yeah.
your work, your family, your community, your hobbies,
Yeah,
and showing that you're not just going to walk away from it all on a whim.
precisely. And remember, the key to presenting those ties effectively is to provide tangible evidence.
Okay.
Don't just tell the interviewer about your volunteer work. Bring a letter from the organization outlining your role and the hours you dedicate.
So instead of just saying, I'm active in my community, I could bring a certificate from that pottery class I've been taking for years. Or maybe some photos from the community garden I volunteer at.
Those are perfect examples. The more specific and personalized your evidence, the more believable and impactful your story will be. It shows that you're not making things up on the spot.
Yeah.
You're presenting a genuine reflection of your life.
This is so helpful.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm starting to understand the strategy behind a successful visa interview. It's not just about answering questions correctly. It's about weaving a compelling narrative that reassures the visa officer of your genuine intentions.
You've hit the nail on the head now before we move on. There's one more point I want to address about those visa categories.
Okay.
Remember how the video we're analyzing had that humorous scene where the applicant got a resident visa,
Oh, yeah.
even though they applied for a tourist visa?
It was funny, but obviously unrealistic.
Right.
But it made me wonder, are there any situations where someone might actually be eligible for a different type of visa than the one they initially thought they qualified for?
That's a great question. Well, the interviewer can't just magically change your visa category.
Right.
There are situations where the information you reveal during the interview might suggest you'd be a better fit for immigrant visa.
So it's not about the interviewer changing the rules, but more about uncovering a more appropriate path based on the applicant's circumstances.
Exactly. For instance, someone applying for a tourist visa might mention during the interview that they have specialized skills that are in high demand in the U.S.
Oh,
This could potentially make them eligible for a work visa instead.
interesting.
Or a student visa applicant might discover their chosen program doesn't meet the requirements, but another program at the same institution does.
So it sounds like clear communication and thorough preparation are essential to make sure you're applying for the right visa from the start.
Absolutely. It's crucial to be upfront about your goals, have all your documentation in order, and be prepared to answer any questions honestly and thoroughly.
Okay, back to being strategic. Earlier we talked about financial independence and how demonstrating your ability to support yourself is crucial.
Right.
But what are some ways to prove you're financially stable without coming across as, flashy or boastful?
You're right, it's a delicate balance. Bringing bank statements that show a consistent income and sufficient funds to cover your travel expenses is a great start.
Yeah,
It demonstrates that you have a responsible approach to your finances and won't become a burden on the U.S. government.
that makes sense. But what if someone else is sponsoring your trip, like a family member or a friend?
In those cases, having your sponsor provide a letter of financial support is essential. The letter should outline their commitment to covering your costs and demonstrate their own financial stability.
So it's about showing that you have a solid financial plan in place, regardless of whether you're personally funding the trip or relying on a sponsor.
Exactly. And if you have any investments, assets, or other sources of income that demonstrate your financial well-being, you can certainly mention them briefly, but the key is to focus on providing clear, concise evidence rather than boasting about your wealth.
It seems like visa interviews are much more layered and nuanced than most people realize.
Yeah.
There's so much to consider.
You're right. It's not just about ticking boxes on a checklist.
Right.
It's about presenting a well-rounded picture of yourself, your intentions, and your ability to be a responsible visitor to the U.S. But there's another fascinating aspect we haven't explored yet.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
While the video we've been analyzing focuses primarily on convincing the interviewer that you'll return home, there's another crucial element to consider. How do you demonstrate that you'll be a responsible visitor while you're in the U.S.?
That's a great point. It's not just about leaving, but about how you'll conduct yourself while you're there.
Uh,
What are some strategies for showcasing that responsible side?
It involves showing that you understand and respect U.S. laws and customs, that you'll be a respectful guest, and that you'll engage with American society in a positive and meaningful way.
So it's about presenting yourself as someone who will enhance the American experience, not detract from it.
You got it. And there are subtle ways to weave this into your interview responses, but before we jump into those, let's take a short pause. When we return, we'll uncover those strategies and wrap up this insightful deep dive.
Okay, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into U.S. visa interviews.
All right.
And I'm feeling a lot more prepared and confident now.
That's what we like to hear. And you're right, we've uncovered a wealth of insights from this English learning video.
Yeah.
Who knew it would be so relevant?
You left us with a really thought-provoking question before our little pause. How do you show the visa officer that you'll be a responsible visitor while in the U.S.?
Right.
It's not just about proving you'll leave, but how you'll behave while you're there.
Exactly. It's like being a good house guest.
Okay.
You want to demonstrate that you understand the rules, you'll be respectful, and you'll contribute to a positive atmosphere.
Okay, I'm getting the analogy, but how do you convey that during a visa interview without sounding like you've memorized a tourist guidebook?
It's all about subtlety and weaving those responsible behaviors into your responses naturally.
Okay.
For example, when you're discussing your travel plans, mention activities that highlight cultural exchange and genuine interest in the U.S.
So instead of just saying, I'm going to Disneyland, I might say, I'm excited to experience American history and culture by visiting museums, attending local events, or even trying regional cuisines.
Now you're getting it. That shows you're not just there for superficial tourism,
Right.
but that you're genuinely interested in immersing yourself in the American experience and engaging with the people and places you visit.
That's a great tip. What are some other ways to subtly emphasize that I'll be a responsible visitor?
You can mention practical things that show you've planned ahead and are taking your trip seriously, talking about travel insurance, pre-booked accommodation, and a well-structured itinerary.
Yeah.
Demonstrates you're organized and won't be putting yourself at unnecessary risk.
It's like showing the visa officer, hey, I've got this all figured out. I'm not going to be a burden or cause any trouble.
Precisely. It all adds up to creating an impression of trustworthiness and responsibility.
Right.
Remember, the visa officer's job is to protect the U.S. and make sure only eligible visitors are granted entry.
Makes sense thinking about it from their perspective.
Right.
So we're trying to reassure them that we'll not only follow the rules, but also contribute positively to the U.S. during our visit.
Exactly. Every detail, every document you present contributes to that overall picture.
Okay.
And speaking of documents, we've talked about the importance of bringing supporting evidence, even if it's not explicitly required.
Right.
What are some examples of those bonus points documents that could make a real difference?
What kind of things would go above and beyond the basic checklist and really impress the visa officer?
Think about things that personalize your story and corroborate your claims.
Okay.
If you're visiting family, bring photos of you with them or copies of emails or letters you've exchanged if you're attending a conference or event.
Right.
Bring a copy of the program or your registration confirmation.
So it's about demonstrating that your plans are real, your connections are genuine, and you've put thought and effort into preparing for this trip.
You got, like saying, I'm not just saying these things, here's the proof. You never know, those extra documents might just tip the scales in your favor and give the visa officer that extra reassurance.
I think this deep dive has been incredibly valuable. I feel so much more informed and empowered about the whole U.S. visa interview process.
And that's what we aim for, to give you the knowledge and confidence to navigate the world successfully. Remember, while every interview is unique, the fundamental principles remain the same. Honesty, transparency, and a genuine desire to experience the U.S. while respecting its laws and customs.
It's been amazing to uncover all these hidden layers and strategic nuances. Who knew a video about English fluency could be so insightful?
That's the beauty of learning. You never know where those golden nuggets of wisdom will pop up.
I love that.
But before we wrap up, I have one final thought to leave you with.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about proving you'll return home, but what about showing your commitment to being a cultural ambassador while you're in the U.S.?
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's not just about taking from the experience, but also about giving back and contributing positively, even as a temporary visitor.
Exactly. How can we show our willingness to learn, grow, and connect with American culture in a meaningful way? That's something for all of us to think about.
Yeah.
Whether we're planning a trip to the U.S. or anywhere else in the world.
It's a great question to ponder. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into U.S. visa interviews. I feel like I've gained a whole new level of understanding and confidence.
Fantastic. We hope this information helps you navigate the process successfully. Remember, preparation is key. And now you have the tools to create a truly compelling narrative that showcases your genuine intentions and responsible approach to traveling in the U.S.
Thank you for joining us on this incredibly informative journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.